Jara, jara. This is my second mid-year book freakout tag. I'll also be taking a few prompts from the mid-year book check-in tag. The mid-year book freakout tag was created by Chammy and Ellie. I think they are Earl Grey books. And the mid-year book check-in tag was created by Harriet Rose and Dane Reeds. So I'll be taking like one or two prompts from that and just kind of like filling out my full mid-year freak out, check in, book tag situation. But it's whatever, so let's get into it. Number one, how many books have you read so far this year? I read 13 books for the year. So far in the year, I did good. I did almost twice the I don't know. I don't remember how much I did last year. I feel like I did a little bit more for the first half of the year last year, but I did pretty good, better than, dare I say, expected for like half of the year already. Because I did almost twice the amount that statistically I would probably do, because I'm more of a one book a month type of person, so I should have been at 6, but I'm at 12, so we doubled up and we're trying to triple up, maybe quadruple up next year. Well, not next year, but the next half of the year. Hopefully, it's gonna be better. It's gonna be better. We're gonna do better. I got a whole lot of books to read, so we're just gonna double up, triple up, you know what I'm saying? You know, I was supposed to do even better in June. I was supposed to read a lot, but life comes at you fast, it switches up on you, and she does her thing, and you just gotta adjust. Number two, what genre have you read most this year? Surprisingly, I read a lot. I feel like I've honestly read a lot of contemporary. I really like looked through and I was like, it's like Jacqueline Woodson I read. Actually, I just realized I read 14 books because I also reread The Dreamers, and I didn't count that in my Goodreads. It's 14 books I read. But I read everything from like Gilbert Adair to Ocean Vuong, Jacqueline Woodson. Oh yes, and I also read Kat Cole. I read both of her. Would they be considered yeah, they would be considered romance, because that's the thing too. I read a lot of literary contemporary. I feel like I'm switching up a little bit. I'm getting a little sci-fi in there. I feel like I did more fantasy last year, which surprised me, than I did this year. Best book you've read so far this year? Honestly, the best books for me that I've read, I would have to say Warcross, definitely, because it was really good. It was like a nice, easygoing, chill read for me at the time. Like, I really needed that read. Something to just, I can fast pace and fly through and just have a good time reading it. And then also for Blackathon and for the Black Loveathon that was hosted by Mina Reeds, I read Sweet Perfection and I read Love Effects, both by Kat Cole, and I enjoyed those so much because I love me some drama. I love drama in my books. I love mess in books. So reading that book, I'm here for this. Having our protagonist, she was messy from the start. She wasn't unlikable as a messy character, but she was just fun and messy, and I was just appreciating that so much. I need to read the third book already. Like, I need to read the third book. That's going to be my mission before the end of the year. I'm going to read the next book. I forgot what the name of it is. I had it like saved and everything, but I'm like, I need to read it. She's so good. Kat Cole is so good. I love her. I need to declare this love of her work to her so that she could keep writing these books. She entertained me. She kept me entertained, and I love it. I appreciate her so much. And they need to adapt her books into like a TV series, because she deserves. Best sequel you've read so far this year? I'll have to say Love Effects by Kat Cole was definitely one of the best sequels I read. Compared to Sweet Perfection, because Sweet Perfection was more like a novella or a novelette or something. It was just short and sweet, and it was just succinct, and it was good. And it was so much packed into it, like love and drama and mess, all packed into it. But then Love Effects, it was a little bit more stretched out, and then I met other characters that were just not, I didn't like as much. So at first it kind of had me going like, oh gosh, is it not going to be good? And then it's like, the more I read, I was like, okay, yeah, you know, because Sweet Perfection kind of sets you up with like all this drama, jam-packed with drama, and then it's like you come into Love Effects and it kind of just slows it down, chills it out, kind of smooths it out a little bit, stretches it out a little bit for you. You get a little bit more invested in characters, And you're gonna need to take that time and get adjusted to that pace, and then stuff starts ramping up again, and you're like, ooh, girl, the mess. And I live for it. You know, I don't like it in my life, but I like it in the books that I read because they keep me entertained, and I like to be entertained. Thanks. You know what I'm saying? Also, I don't want to say controversial because it is controversial, but it's also like I'm not trying to be like smart about it, be funny about it, but Chamber of Secrets before the other person, whoever. Basically, we'll say it this way. The second book in the Harry Potter memoirs, mystery memoir series. It's so silly. The second book in the Harry Potter mystery memoir series, I thought that was a really good sequel. I enjoyed it. I know people had their problems with it. They are problems because of the ghostwriter. They said some problematic things in real life, very problematic things in real life, and they've also kind of put a lot of that problematic stuff into the book. But I will admit that it was an entertaining sequel. That besides Love Effects, that is like the only other sequel that I read, and I did enjoy it. But I do not advocate for supporting the ghostwriter of this book, and I will therefore, going forward, call the Harry Potter series Harry Potter's mystery memoirs, because it is kind of his life being told through these stories, and it is a mystery. So that's where we're gonna leave it at. I will just say Harry Potter wrote those books, and that's the end of that. We on our way. Number 5, biggest disappointment. I didn't have any really. In a lot of the books that I went into, I didn't really have much expectations, so I didn't have really many disappointments or any disappointments compared to last year, where my biggest disappointment was The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. It's a good book, but it still disappointed me because I just wanted more ball culture. I needed more of the ball. I get it, it's still about this house and this family, but I needed ball. I needed ballroom in my face. Like, we only got like one ballroom scene, and that didn't feel as consequential to the story as it could have been. Well, it was consequential, but it just, I don't know, it just wasn't enough ballroom. Like, I still needed the book to like give me the ball, because the ball was like part of their happiness, the part of their joy. It's kind of part of what brought them together too. And it a way they express themselves. I really shouldn't be talking about this book because that was last year, but that's how much that affected me, and it's still disappointing me to this year. That and Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens, because that was another book that just felt like, I thought from the cover and everything, I thought that was going to be a like ballroom kind of book. It was gonna be like a black, like just black LGBTQ, because they were already talking about like drag and drag shows and drag kings and stuff like that in the synopsis, and I thought, ooh, it was gonna be that, and it just gave me suburban, like coming of age, I don't know, logo coming of age, like LGBTQ movie, and I was just like, I wasn't into it. I didn't like it. I was not entertained by it. I was annoyed by a lot of the characters. I was annoyed by the protagonist, and I was upset that the one black character that I enjoyed was also like this magical Negro for the entire fucking book. And I thought she deserved better, because she didn't need to be fucking taking care of these hoes. They don't deserve her. Deidre deserved her own book, and she deserved better. I figured, since I'm gonna talk about these books, I might as well show what they are. Maybe someone else will read these and like them more than I did, and not be as disappointed by them. The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. Maybe I'll reread this one day, but it's also very, very long. And to be reading something that is this long, but also considerably sad, and the moments of levity aren't enough, which goes to my argument about needing more ballroom scenes just to kind of balance out like the darker, harsher aspects of this book. Like, we needed more of that in this book. And also, if you love Pose, I do feel like this is a good book to read. And if you've never seen Pose and you plan on watching Pose, this is a good book to read before you actually see Pose, because I do feel this was also influenced by Paris is Burning and other such documentaries that came after it that talk about the ballroom scene. I do think that this book also kind of influences some of the stories that are told in Pose. So I definitely think it's worth reading for other people, especially to learn about Black and Brown LGBTQIA people who are from urban areas and how they survive through and how they live and thrive through ballroom culture, through being parts of houses and being parts of these gay families slash gay gangs, these houses, and how beneficial they are to their lives. So definitely, it's worth checking out. You might like it more than I did. You might have a better experience with it. Kings, Queens, and In Betweens by Tanya Betajou. It's worth reading for its coming of age, and there's some cuteness to it, but I didn't like the cuteness of it. I had my issues. I just didn't. I didn't like the lead. I didn't like her love interest, and I was just disappointed. And also, Deidre, I love her the most. Her depiction was also just kind of relegated to a magical Negro, and I had my issues with that. She was like the only good part of the story, but I also felt like she deserved better in the story. Hopefully, Tanya might be able to give Deidre a story of her own that just kind of explores her life. That would be amazing. Yeah, these are still disappointing me to this year. So, number 6, biggest surprise. For me, the biggest surprise that I had was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I went in with not too many expectations, but I thought like it was just gonna be this literary book that I was not gonna love and enjoy as much. I loved the writing. I loved the characterizations. I just loved the way the story was told, and it's actually made me excited about reading more books by Jacqueline Woodson, because I've considered reading Jacqueline Woodson before, but then I was like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be into it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. I know they're a poet. I'm not big into poetry, so I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And after reading this book, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna need to pick up like other Jacqueline Woodson books. I also heard about her Brown Girl Dreaming memoir, which is a memoir told entirely in verse. So I definitely want to read that. I'm very, very interested in reading that, especially after reading The Poet X last year and enjoying that, which that for me was a surprise. Number 7, favorite new or new to you author. That would have to be Kat Cole, Jacqueline Woodson, Marie Lu, and River Solomon. Kat Cole definitely for Sweet Perfection and for Love Effects, because she entertained me and I loved it. And I'm looking forward to more stories coming, especially coming from her Miller Sisters stories. I definitely am looking forward to that. Jacqueline Woodson, more of her book. Marie Lu, I loved Warcross so much, so I'm just like, I did not plan on reading the Legend series before, but now I'm like, yo, I have to read this Legend series, because if I enjoyed Warcross this much and I was entertained by it like this, I feel like I will enjoy the Legend series. Because I've heard other people talk about the Legend series, but I was like, I don't think I'm gonna pick that up. And now I'm like, yes, I'm gonna get this. I need to read this. And River Solomon, after reading An Unkindness of Ghosts, and as heavy as it was and as deep as it was, and it was a lot to go through, to just deal with. It was also a book that was just, it's so profound. Like after you read it, there's still, like you start processing it and thinking about it, and you're just coming away with so much more layers to beneath that book when you start thinking about it. Like when you really interrogate the book, and then you go, and I feel like if you go back and do a reread of it, you'll get so much more out of it. I'm looking forward to reading more books by River Solomon, because their pen game is crazy. Their storytelling is amazing. They are a force to be reckoned with going forward. Number 8, newest favorite character. As much as I read some really good books this year, I don't think I have any favorite characters right at the moment. Like no characters that really I can rave about, that I'm just like I loved and I'm just raving about. Like I think I had favorite characters last year, like with the New World. I liked Kirby from the New World. And also that goes for number 9, newest fictional crush. I didn't have any new favorite fictional crush. Nothing. No, not at all. I would have to say, like, it's still gonna be like Kirby from the New World graphic novel. Was there a graphic novel? It's more like a comic book bind up. Kirby from the New World, that was my fictional crush of last year, and he still kind of is my fictional crush of this year, you know, like, he could get it. Number 10, a book that made you cry. Yeah, still haven't had one of those yet. Still haven't had a book that made me cry. Not yet, not at all. I've kind of been looking, but not really. I think the closest thing that probably came to something that almost made me cry would be An Unkindness of Ghosts, because of just how intensity that went on in that book. It was just kind of very, very sad. A book that made you happy. I would have to say Love Effects and Sweet Perfection. They made me happy because they just have me engaged, entertained, laughing, and reacting to it. And just like, I'm reading it and I'm like, just like I was on the bus just reading the book and going like, oh, like just reacting to it like it's like I'm really just watching a show and just engage with it. Like, it was so good. I loved it so much. I love both those books so much. I'm telling you, I'm so excited about the third book. I need to read it like as soon as possible. And also Warcross, because Warcross was just so fast paced, so chill, so easygoing, so action packed. It's all these different things. It's big lights and glitz and innovation and science fiction, and I loved it. I was entertained. I had fun with it. It had interesting characters. It was just, I had fun with it. It was a really fun book. So those are books that have made me happy so far this year. Number 12. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. I would say Sweet Perfection, Love Effects. And definitely Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. And definitely Warcross, because I do like a lot of like colors, like rainbow colors. Not necessarily pride flaggy, but very much like, you know, artistically lots of colors like these. These are super beautiful covers. This one especially, this is like so beautiful, so striking, and so artistic. I love it so much. Number 13, most anticipated release of the second half of the year. I have so many books that I want to read that I can't even think of like what is coming up later on this year or that just recently got released or anything that I want to read. Because so much of it keeps coming and it just keeps coming, and I'm like, everything is exciting to me, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I want to read that. Like, I can't even think about reading those because I still have so many other books to read. I still haven't read Children of Blood and Bone. Like, I haven't read that yet, so I'll get to that. Like, the only thing I'm anticipating right now is the third book, India Orisha Legacies book. Like, although there is no projected date that this book is supposed to come out, this is the only book I'm probably like anticipating, because I'm going to do just like Charisse at Silver Rose Reads and probably just wait till that third book comes out, and that's when I'm going to start reading the entire trilogy so that I don't have to wait at all for any of the books. I definitely want to read A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. I am not sure who it is by yet. People keep talking about it in videos and talking about how good it is, and everybody's so excited, so I'm like, I definitely want to read that. I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably end up reading it next year because of how I'm reading and all the books, the backlog of books that I gotta read. Yeah, that's the main thing that I'm like looking forward to reading. At number 14, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Okay, so let me just go get these books. Okay, first and foremost, Excellence. This has been long overdue. I definitely want to read Excellence. I think I will read it twice. I will read the comic book single issues that came out that I bought all of them because I love the idea of a black man who was like a wizard, and there's like this wizard fraternity secret society thing. I was like, okay, you got me, you sold me, so I'm about to read this. I'm excited about reading this. I'm looking forward to reading it. I read, the author is Brandon Thomas, and I think it's like art and coloring by Carrie Randolph and Amelia Lopez. But earlier this year, I read God Shots by Brandon Thomas. It is a part of the Catalyst Prime universe of comic books. And I read this, and I was disappointed a little bit. I'd say disappointed. Not necessarily disappointed. It just didn't give me enough of what I needed. I hadn't really heard people talk about this book prior to reading it as much, and I understood why. It's a good pitch for an action superhero movie than it is just a comic book. I won't hold this book against Brandon Thomas. He's gonna bring an even more exciting story with Excellence, so I will definitely read all these issues back to back and also read the trade bind up of the entire comic book series and see if there's any extras in here. And I'm hoping that they are continuing the story, because I would love to get the next trade bind up. I would love to get an omnibus of it because Image does some great omnibuses, so I love, although I haven't read the omnibuses yet. I say I want to read Saga and Invincible and The Wicked and Divine, but you know what? Let me add Invincible to the list of books that I want to read before the end of the year. This is another book that I want to read. It is by Robert Kirkman, who is because I think Robert Kirkman is the main writer, or at least the creator of this series. He is the creator of The Walking Dead, and I heard so many great things about this comic book because it is kind of like a Superman superhero story, but they go where I guess DC at least where DC doesn't go with their superheroes, with their Superman superhero story, where once he loses something, he loses it, and there's no going back. Like, if someone dies, they die, and that is it. Like, and I've heard it just deals with so many intense things. It deals with a lot of things, and it deals with them so well. So I'm looking forward to reading Invincible. I've had this for a year, pretty much, I think, and I was supposed to read it like last year. It still ain't happened yet. I definitely want to start it, and I want to get further into the series. The series is completely done at this point. It has ended, and I heard it's ended really well or heartbreaking. I'm not sure. I heard Robert Kirkman just like goes there and he like shatters people's hearts. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I also want to read Black AF, America's Sweetheart by Kwanzaa Assegiafor and Tim Smith III. After reading the Black comic book, I definitely wanted to follow it up with this, especially after Jerry talked about it. I wanted to follow up with it. I think the artwork looks so beautiful, so I definitely want to read this. I was supposed to read this for Blackathon, but that didn't happen. I definitely wanted to give it my undivided attention and really give it, although it's a short one, I still wanted to give it like my full attention. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I had fun reading Black, so I'm suspecting it's gonna be fun, but I also feel like this is gonna be like still a very serious, very beautiful story in Black AF. America's Sweetheart. I definitely want to read these as well. No Ashes in the Fire by Donnell L. Moore. He is a queer Black writer. I think he's like an activist, but also he's a Black gay intellectual. I will just say he's a Black gay intellectual, and I believe an activist as well for like Black queer rights. I'm looking forward to reading this. I've heard so many great things about it. I also have listened to interviews with Donnell L. Moore, and he is just an amazing person to hear speak, and really just hear like when he imparts wisdom to you. It's amazing. He's amazing. Like, I think Donnell Moore is amazing, and I wish I could be as amazing as he is. Also, I Can't Date Jesus and I Don't Want to Die Poor by Michael Arsenault. I love him. I think he's so funny. I think he's amazing. Like, definitely get these books. I feel like for people who like, although I've never read books by David Sedaris, I feel like these books are very much in that David Sedaris lane of like humorous memoirs, or like humorous memoir-esque type of books. And I feel like if you enjoy David Sedaris, or at least David Sedaris style of books, you would definitely enjoy I Can't Date Jesus and I Don't Want to Die Poor by Michael Arsenault, because he's funny, he's humorous, he tackles a lot of social issues, especially when it comes to Black LGBTQIA people, but comes from a very personal place that is very relatable, at least very relatable to Black people. I also want to read An Organic Guide to Living Happier and Healthier by Antonio Ward Jr., who is another Black queer man. This is I believe more like along self-help. Like the book says, it's about like living happier and healthier. And I heard like an interview of him on the Him podcast. Like, hearing him talk about like what drove him to write this book was really, really like inspiring and exciting for me. And it made me excited about wanting to pick up his book. See how I can make my own happier and healthier improvements to my life. Also, I want to finally get to An Ember in the Ashes by Saiwa Tahir. I'm looking forward to this. I definitely want to read this so that Charisse of Silver Rose reads and I can like discuss it, talk about it so I can get into the series so that we could talk about it, because she's just been like, you have to read this. Also, I have to read Shatter Me. Eventually, I will get there to Shatter Me. I wanted to read it initially because superheroes, and then like I read the first chapter of Shatter Me, and I was just like, I don't know about this book now. And then Charisse talked about it, and I was like, okay, so I'm gonna get it then because Charisse said it. Also, in this vein, I may actually finally get to The Raven Boys and The Darkest Minds because it's due time. The Darkest Minds by Alexander Bracken and The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. It's about time I read these. We'll try to see if I can get to them this year. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what's up. I don't know. You know, we just never know. You know what I'm saying? We just gotta get the move right. You know what I'm saying? I need to read Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead and The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. These are both books that I need to read. This one I was supposed to read, I think, back in March, or I think it was April. We were supposed to read this for my book club. And with so much that happened in our lives, we weren't able to read it. We will read it, but we're supposed to discuss it a little later in the year because this, I heard, is a very heavy book to read. With everything going on in our lives at this point in time, this is just not the book that I think we wanted to like read in the moment and kind of discuss. So we will eventually get to reading this. So I want to read this before the end of the year, and eventually we will discuss this. And I've been looking forward to reading The Underground Railroad because it's just giving me like WGN's Underground, and it's also just giving me like a young Harriet Tubman with like gunslinging and kicking ass to get to like freedom, but also like just a young black girl just like fighting for her freedom, and she's just like being a fucking badass about it, and I'm here for it. Oh my gosh, I'm excited about this, but I'm also scared that after hearing about Nickel Boys, that this is about to be some heavy shit, but then it's also about slavery, so it's definitely gonna be some heavy shit, but I'm gonna read it. I knowing that people are gonna come out, like black people are gonna come out of these like traumas and struggles and whatever, like they're coming out on the other side winning and living, and they fought for their lives, fought for their freedom, and they kicked ass to get out and get through. I'm excited about that, so I definitely want to read that, and praying that it's not gonna weigh me down like a fucking like 20-pound weighted, like 100-pound weighted blanket. Like I don't need it. I will deal with it if it comes to that. I need to finally read Simon and the Homo Sapien Agenda in my list of quintessential young adult LGBTQIA novels. I am looking forward to reading Matilda by Roald Dahl so that I can listen to that episode of Book versus Movie podcast where they discuss the book and the movie, and I'm looking forward to seeing the movie again. I'm looking forward to rereading Cinder by Marissa Myers. Well, rereading Cinder by Marissa Myers because I just want to be sure that I didn't miss anything the first time, and then I want to complete the entire series of the Lunar Chronicles. I'm looking forward to that. I'm still hoping that they make a movie series out of this. I want that so bad. They need to do it already. Please and thank you. I appreciate it. Build this world up. I don't know how we gonna build that world, this Lunar Chronicles world in the world that we're living in now, but I want the Lunar Chronicles. Netflix, where you at? Make it happen. I definitely would love to read Magnifique Noir, Book 1, I Am Magical by Brianna Lawrence. I would definitely love to read this. This is a book that Jerry at Onyx Pages highly recommends, and I am looking forward to reading this. Like all this color and all this amazement and excitement. I have to read this. This is going to be very queer and very black girl and very magical and exciting. So I definitely want to read this and get immersed in this. And I definitely want to read a whole lot of X-Men comics. I want to get a whole bunch of X-Men Marvel omnibuses and read all of the X-Men comic books. So I will start with this. I already have the X-Men House of X, Powers of X bind up omnibus situation. So eventually I want to get to this, but I want to read all of the other X-Men omnibuses, or at least collect them. Like I really want to collect the omnibuses. I will read them, but I definitely want to collect them and own them. I want to get the first 2 omnibuses. They are the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee runs, or at least the one like that was the birth of the X-Men. Those 2, that was like the birth of the X-Men in Marvel, so I want to get those 2 omnibuses, but they're out of print, and the prints that you can actually get are suffering from capitalist greed, so I'm just gonna wait on Marvel to finally re-release them when they get a chance to. I will try and collect all the other X-Men omnibuses I could get, and I will read them and read all of the X-Men stories I can read. I don't care how good they are or bad they are. I love X-Men a lot, and I want to be as entrenched in X-Men lore and stories as much as possible. I keep hearing some people talk about them so much, especially like the Emma Frost, Jean Grey, Scott Summers drama and their messes. Like I want, and you know I like, and I already like my mess in my stories. And X-Men is about to give me like superhero soap opera drama with action. You speaking my language, sis. Come through, come through. So I need all my X-Men omnibuses. I'm looking forward to that. And I will definitely leave my wish list, my Amazon wish list down below so that you can see all of the X-Men omnibuses that I want to get. And you can mind my business in my wish list if you want. And if you feel moved to, you can make a purchase of an omnibus or something for me, but that's fine if you don't want to. I'm okay with that. I'll be able to get it myself. Just leave some copies for me so I could get one. Okay, thanks. And I will read them and talk about them and have a blast reading about the Shi'ar and about the Phoenix Saga and about ooh, look at this. Wolverine's out here like he's fighting like shirtless loincloth men and stuff. Superhero stories are so homosexual and I stand it so much. Do you see this? It's like, oh my gosh. It's just so are these comics actually even for kids? Because it's so racy. But I'm excited. I'm gonna read these though. So that was my mid-year book freak out. This video turned out longer than I expected and I'm a little upset about that because I gotta edit all of this. But that's fine. As long as y'all enjoyed it or whatever. Definitely leave a comment about anything that resonated with you in this video. You can timestamp your comments. Leave a comment. I would appreciate that so much. Thank you. We can have a little conversation in the comment section. I'm here for that. So thank you for spending your time with me. And I'm on this bitch like Fleek. The fuck.